Welcome back to the day 2 for the Excel tutorials. Let's take a look at what we did very quickly in day 1 and then move into the session. So primarily what we covered in the first session was give you the overview of an Excel. How can you start adding different rows, columns, little bit on formatting, how can you sort the data, how can you apply filter, and so on. So now let's move further into doing or advancing in what we learn about Excel. So Excel is a phenomenally important tool, especially with the power of different things that it brings to the table. So let's look at some of the more complex stuff, but again, very, very interesting. So we will continue on the same project where we were looking at inviting guests for a function or an event, and you are trying to list down the various guests, where are they located, what are their email addresses, and how many guests in total are coming from each, correct? So now let's talk about a few more items. We'll talk about freezing the Excel panes. Freezing Excel panes is basically an ability through which you can look at certain columns or rows freezed to the sheet, in the sense that, for example, I'm going to save this as project 2 to begin with, so you have the Excels as is. For example, let's say that I copy the same set of data, okay, just as an example, and I paste it here. So what I have done is I have created data which is bigger, I mean more rows into it, that's it. If you see, I am able to go through and scroll down using my mouse and be able to look at the different records. But at the same time, the first view here has a column name. Unfortunately, as I scroll down, that row is getting hidden, and we are able to see the remaining rows. So for us to be able to freeze a specific row, so that when we scroll down, that row still remains there, is basically freezing freezing a pane or freezing a specific row. To do that, what we can do is, I believe you can also do a right click and do format, but we will do it through the view option here. So once you go to the view option, you would see the option called freeze panes. See, keep a portion of the sheet visible with the rest of the sheet scrolls. So let's freeze which one, the selected one, the first top row, or the first column. Now, let me give you the differentiators between these, but let's say this is the one we have selecting. Okay, so now if you see, the freezing has been done here at this specific row, and this is not where we want it. So what you could do is you could highlight, what happened, Control Y, unfreeze panes. I'm gonna remove that freezing that we put earlier, take it off, and now I'm gonna say freeze the top row. What this will do is, if I scroll down vertically up and down, that first row remains to be the same. If I freeze the first column, this is the first row, this is the first column, column A. If I freeze the first column, now what will happen? You will see that you can scroll this way, but you are not able to. So what is the difference? The difference is, if I copy the same content again and I put it here, and now if I do a horizontal scroll, do you see? So the first column is frozen for you. You can in fact also freeze both. Oops. Let me do a Control Y, which is redo. And if I do unfreeze panes and I select this specific cell and I now say freeze panes, I think what will happen is it will freeze the row in front of it above this, and it will also freeze the column to the left of it. So if I navigate to the right side, that is horizontal scrolling to the left and right, you will see the first column is frozen. And if I do up vertical scroll, top and bottom, going up and down, then you'll see that first row is frozen. And how did I do that? The way I did it is I selected the cell after the row that I want to freeze and after the column that I want to freeze. Why is this important? It is important because Excel gives you the ability to look at lots of data together. And sometimes what happens is you need to be able to view data in a very neat fashion, in a very nice manner. So your view is important. So if I want to know what is that column referring to or what is that row referring to, then this freeze panes will be absolutely critical. Okay, now that we've learned the concept, we'll apply it as we get more data into this. For now, this is what my data is. So now you've seen the freeze panes. I will still freeze it here. Okay, I am going to unfreeze as it, but I will go back and freeze this particular cell. What is the same cell? It is B2. Okay, just like a chessboard, you have the columns and rows. This is B2. Now I'm going to say freeze this space. Okay, so this is frozen at this point. Now, what I want to do is this. Let's look at another exercise. All right, I have lots of guests, lots of locations that are coming in. Okay, I want to find out the total number of guests that are coming in. Do you see what I'm saying? So you want to see how many guests are coming. So how many guests are coming? If you select specific cells, and if you go to the guide out here, the toolbar on the bottom side, okay, if you look at this, it will say count is 15. You can look at various values in here as you go along. Okay, now the count being 15 is basically saying that there are 15 cells that have been selected here. So now if you select more than one cell, it will show you how many cells are selected. How many guests are coming in total? Are there 15 guests coming? No, the total guess is the sum of everything here. Now, when I do the same thing for numbers, do you see that you see more information here? There is the average here, there is a count here, there is a sum here. Now, why do I want, so I have these values here, but I will have need where I want to be able to put that in a different cell in the Excel itself. So I can say that this is my last cell. This was my beginning row. Now I'll say this is my last row. Okay, last row. Actually, not last. Here I'll say total guests invited. This is not attending. This is just total guests invited equals. Now we're getting into something called as formula. Okay, once you start an equal sign, you are basically putting a formula in that cell. What is a formula? A formula is a way that we can give an equation or give something as an information to Excel to calculate, just like your calculator to be able to calculate. So for example, if I say equals 3 plus 4, okay, and hit enter, what do you see here? You see 7. Why do you see 7? You see 7 because the Excel automatically calculated an addition. So whatever I write, it will try and equate to that. So if I say 3 into 4, now it is 12. How about 3 minus 4 minus 1? Okay. How about 3 by 4? 0.75. Though I didn't give an equation, it probably recognized 3 by 4 as a number and I put it. But if I convert this type of this data and say that, hey, you know what, this is not a number, this is a text. Okay, if I just say that this is a text generic, why is it still giving 0.75? 3 by 4? Okay, it's taking it as a date. I don't want this to be a date or anything, just a text. Okay, there you go. Okay, 3 by 4 is a text. There you go. Is showing it as a text. But if I want the equation or the value of it, then you give an equal to and say that this is a number and it should show you the value. Oops, what happened? Okay, let me start fresh. Control V equals 3 by 4. Alright. So now why does it show you 1 as a value for 3 by 4? Because I gave that there are no decimal spaces in guess here. So if I increase the number of decimal spaces, you will start seeing it getting rounded to that specific number. Now, what did I show you? I showed you how formulas can be written. You can write formulas here. When you get it into an edit mode, either by double clicking on the cell or by using your shortcut key on your keyboard called F2. Remember this shortcut key, please. F2 is a shortcut key for editing, especially on your Excel. So for example, if I'm just using my up and down arrows on my keyboard, up and down arrows on the keyboard to go, and I want to edit this, and I'm lazy to take my mouse all the way and click on that cell, I can just do F2 and it will get my cell into an edit mode, and I can start writing what I want after that. Okay, so what was I saying? Yeah, I was saying that if this is 3 by 4 and this is 0.75, you can only when you do an F2 and when you get it into an edit mode, you see the actual equation or the formula for it. Okay, you also see the formula detailed out here on the top. Okay, there is this functions thing on the left side. You can come to functions little later, okay, because it will list down a lot of things. Now remember this, Excel as is, okay, can be used at a very basic level just to store information not rightly formatted and so on, or at a more logical, more meaningful way with few formulas and so on, or it can be used as a very advanced database or a base where you hold data and information and content, and that with pivot tables and graphs and so on, and easily accessible from different places, and that becomes very advanced stages. Okay, I am trying to get you between the very initial to the mid-level stages at least, but as you work on it, as you see the need, you can always do a very simple research and say, you know what, I want to find out the number of days, working days from Jan 1st to today, and then gives a lot of rules, and those so many things can be combined and put together into it. Okay, now the reason I'm saying that is, do not get alarmed by the number of formulas and all that. You are not going to remember everything as is. You are trying to understand how they're constructed. What do they mean? How do they work? Then once you learn this foundation, putting anything on top of it and learning new small things like sine or max and so on becomes relatively very easy. Okay, so we're getting the foundation layer. So this is 3 by 4. Now, why am I showing you this? I am showing you this so that I can tell you how you can write formulas. So I want the sum of all the guests here. So how do we do it? The way I do it is, you start your formula with an equal to and say this equals this. See, as soon as I click on that cell, it will show me D2 because that is the address of that specific cell in this Excel sheet. Okay, D2 plus, let's say, D3. So same column, D3 plus, let us say, D4 and so on till here is basically what? A formula which is saying whatever is the value in 3. Oops, actually we should have started with 2, or we started with 2. That's good. Whatever, let me erase this drawing. Whatever is the value in 5 and 4 and 4, add them together. Now, when I selected them, I'll see it here. Sum is 13, count is 3, average is 4. Yeah, sorry about that. So the reason I have done this is to show you how you can add values. Now, why is it important? Tomorrow, if let's say Chris comes and says, hey, you know what, couple of people are additionally coming with me. Is it okay? Fine, no problem. Let me put it to 7. Automatically this becomes 15. You know what? Andy calls and says, sorry, we are not coming. Unfortunately, we are unable to make it. Fine, no problem. See you next time. 0, and then it is taken care. So this is a dynamic formula. This formula has no hard-coded values in the sense that the values for this cell, specific cell, what is the cell D17, is not out here. It is dependent on values of cells that are there somewhere else. Hence, this is dynamic because if I change data anywhere in this value is going to change. Okay, and that is what we want, because I want to know as I keep updating the sheet or adding new rows and so on, how will this value change? Okay, so this value is now 11. Now I'm going to say that, hey, you know what, I don't want the sum of just the first 3 rows. How about I want the sum of all of these rows? And the formula for that, the basic formula that you start with, is instead of adding each cell, you just say equals sum of. As soon as you start to write the formula, you will see the different functions, inbuilt Excel functions coming up. Okay, in equations you can put values as is, do a plus, minus and so on. or pick it up from a cell and dynamically display the values, or use a formula which has got an inbuilt meaning to it. So when I say sum, it says adds all the number in a range of cells. What do I mean in a range of cells? Now I can give the range of cells. As soon as I do a open bracket, it tells me, hey, you know what? Give me the range of that cell. Number 1, number 2, and so on. The way to do it is click on the first cell that you want. You would see D2 coming up here. And drag it all the way till the last cell that you want to add. And now you close the brackets. So what that does is the basic structure for that equals sum equals D2 colon D16 and hit enter. Now do you see this value? It is the sum of all these rows that we have out here. Is it correct? There you go, 40. So tomorrow if we come and change any of these values here, automatically this will get dynamically changed. Now why are these cells empty? Because this total guest invited is the cell and the value that I need to refer for this is here. So what can I do? How can I take the cells off? That you do by a very important activity called merging and centering your cells. What merge does is it combines one or more cells together to become one cell. So that way I can look at it as not as 3 different cells but as one cell. First, let me give a border and bring it to that shape. Second, I will select the cells that I want to merge and click on this merge. What merge will do is it will combine these 3 cells into one cell. And now you could put a background to it. Let's put a different background, okay? And you could change whatever you want. The reason this is important is you are able to put these details out here. So now what is happening? At the end of my Excel, I have the total guests invited. Now, I will also put another formula. So to copy, I will copy this as is and I'm going to paste this. So what did I do? I did a copy and I did a paste. Why did I do a copy and paste? I will say this is actually going to be average guests per invite. Now, when I was double clicking this, why is this coming in 2 cells? Because we use this filter. We did the freeze panes. Once we did a freeze panes, it is only selecting that specific portion. Now, average guests per invite. What do I mean by average guests per invite? All right, I have 40 guests that are coming in. Sounds good. But also, number 1, why is it 69? Any idea why could this be 69? This is 38, I know, because it is adding up all of this. How do I know it's adding up all of this? Because if I go on this, either double click here or look at the formula here, it is adding up these specific cells in that range. But what about this? Same thing, go on it, either do a double click or look at the formula bar to see what it is doing. It is doing sum D3 colon D17. Interesting. What does that mean? When I copied and pasted, it took that formula and pasted the formula as well. But instead of starting from D2, it started from D13. Instead of ending at D16, it ended at D17. Why? Because when I did a copy paste, I went down on one row. And hence, it increased that formula also by 1 row. So it is now adding, if you look at that blue highlight, from D3 to D17, which is my total guests invited. Is this the correct value? No. What is the correct value? The correct equation for this is start with an equation and say average. Do I see an average here? As you say average, you will see the different formulas that are coming up here. Now, do I remember myself every formula? No. The most frequently ones I use, I remember it. But at the same time, I know there is a formula which I can use it when I want it. Okay, and that is why you can always refer to it as you go. Average returns the average arithmetic mean of its arguments, blah blah blah. So a lot of maths and English into it, but simple. If I take 3 numbers, the average of these 3 numbers is 1. What is the average? Formula for average equals sum of, okay, this is actually going to start writing, equals sum of all the numbers by count of that number. All right, that is what average.